Hello, bozos, and welcome to what nobody's calling the Lore Picnic, I think. We seem to have... So, well, John has presented a wonderful bounty, a smorgasbord of cake. Though all of us are probably too afraid to eat it for fear of, like, a Shawnee-style... Like...
I can't start that till I finish my hot chocolate.
Yeah.
Also got hot chocolate.
The hot chocolate takes priority, which we've just... I mean, you've missed us filling it with squirty cream.
It's quite bossy and badly.
Yeah, there's going to be squirty cream
So
throughout.
I'm going to sit with a little spoon, so I apologise.
So, yeah, it's worth noting that the people you're going to have to spend the next hour with are Mod Osborne,
Mod Stu,
Mod Raven,
Mod Jack,
who are various people to blame for lore things that have happened in the past 5 years.
Sorry.
Interesting choice of words. People to blame for. Right?
It's going to be self-deprecating a little bit. But we've kind of harvested you for questions. I don't know if you've been involved in that, some people in the chat as well. We're going to just almost go through one by one and see if, I don't know if it's going to end up in a Stu-style lore marathon,
we'll see.
where we never go home. But we have food. The place is set up to support us.
Night, yeah.
A little caveat that most of us have been at a Christmas do. So this is the first thing we've done since that Christmas do.
There's no one else in the office, they've all gone home.
There's nobody else here.
We agreed to come and do the lore live stream instead of going home.
Which, that does have the bonus of there is nobody here to stop us doing anything.
That's true.
We have free reign. Who knows what's going to happen.
Except the only person who would stop us would be John, and John is here.
But John is eminently likeable and we're affable and will let us do whatever we want, so that's great.
So we're all going to be the new CEO,
Where's Shawnee?
right?
Shawnee went home with
That's what I'm
everyone else.
saying.
That's why Shawnee here.
Shawnee does actually go home. I think he's got one. It might be off.
He's
It might
probably
be meeting room 001.
Yeah, I think he hid in a cupboard and is just working. I don't think he actually went home. I think he just pretended.
Oh, Shawnee Ains. All right, shall we just jump into it? Because there is just endless questions. Like, I'm scrolling down and the scroll bar's not moving.
I think there's 8 pages worth of questions.
Well, 80 pages.
8
pages.
Not
right.
80. These are questions that so Mod Rory went through all the threads and compiled them for us.
Yeah.
So there are those questions, and of course there are people.
Yeah.
And people may say more words.
Let's see what people say. Do you want to do it? Shall we broach it? Let's see if we can promise anything in the future. Oh gosh, Rayla Rosen. What's the status of the 3 6th Age pillars? So this is going back a bit, like 4 or 5 years. Dragonkin, Elders, and Stone of Jazz. Are they still a guiding principle?
So we've-ish. So they're still a thing that we're doing, but we've tweaked it a bit.
Yeah.
Like we've still got a plan, and the plan still involves some of the pillars, but we've reincorporated rather than being pillars into our 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Which may not take 10 years, but never mind. We've written it as a 5-year plan, but which is where we want our story to go, all the beats we want to hit, and it incorporates most of the pillars, I think.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So they've just been rebranded, I think. Is probably
Stone of Jazz is, we consider, done.
Yeah, Stone of Jazz is over.
Except in as much as it has an impact on Dragonkin, which is one of the other pillars.
There are
and it has an
ramifications
impact
on
on Elder Gods and other gods, etc. Yeah, but Stone of Jazz...
Because I know that when we first kind of communicated them at RuneFest, I remember that you were on stage with me, and we had almost like in our mind a story Gantt chart, like gods would finish here, Elder Gods would pick up here, Dragonkin here, and that's not quite the same way.
It hasn't worked out that way.
No, as you could probably tell. All right, so our friend Wahisatel, can we expect to see more quests in 2018? I think that's probably a question from like most people in the story community. What do you think? We've chatted about this only like 2 days ago.
Yeah. I would say I'd like to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for the players that don't know, we've done a bit of an internal restructure with how we do things at the moment. So,
so bonus, we've got 2 story devs on one team.
This is true.
Bonus, but there are other things.
I would say there's a reason. I mean, I'd certainly like to go back to doing some smaller quests. Little shop. I mean, I asked the players whether they'd be happy with something about the size of like Nature Spirit. So like really short, really small, with a bit of story in it.
Yeah.
And the response was overwhelmingly positive in favour of something like that. So I'd like us to be able to release more stories in shorter space. I realise I'm doing all the talking.
I think, what we're hoping is that we can tone down the epic a bit and deliver more quests, more small to mid-sized quests, rather than 1 or 2 giant quests that suck up all of the
I think even some of the things that we originally put down as a bottle quest have ballooned a little bit. Like, to be fair, like Evil Day was probably longer than what I consider to be a bottle quest.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to reset expectations with like us, as well as players. But I think one of the things that I would want to mention is that like one of the focuses from the past couple of weeks has been we want to get quantity up.
Yeah.
And
all across the board, not just quests.
Yeah. This is like we have made a number of projects bigger than they possibly needed to be. We're talking about over-designing things. And that does come with quests as well. And we're looking at how we can get more out and how we can change things to do that. And a lot of that is like upfront design is one of the biggies, isn't it? I mean, does anybody want to like broach that? I know it's early days.
We've had a few developers say, well, I'd happily make a quest if someone else would write the quest for me.
Yeah.
And we've been intentionally not doing that because the impression that we get is that the devs would rather write the story themselves. But some devs aren't interested in writing the story themselves and would rather have it written for them. So that's actually quite exciting for us.
Yeah, because that is the wall. That is one of the walls that we can jump over. And then
we've definitely had a couple of devs and sort of recently been talking about things saying that they would like to be able to create like the gameplay and the puzzles of something and then someone else tie it all together. And then there's a few of us going, we'd like to just do the story and the time bits together and not to do the gameplay bit. So
everyone's happy.
This is a brick. What? Why?
Yeah, and it works out really well.
Yeah. We'd also like to lower the rising expectations for rewards and quests. Because at the moment that takes up so much of the development time for a quest that... but if we can have more generic rewards that are locked into other projects for that year or that are in some way consumables, so that we're not spending so much of that time on the rewards and we spend more time building the quest itself and making a more compelling narrative experience.
Yeah. It was fascinating talking to some of the story devs and them saying, the non-story devs, saying that they actually feel a little bit tentative about taking on story projects because they feel like they need to understand the entirety of RuneScape's lore before they take it on, because they'll be, they'll do something wrong or they won't fully comprehend a certain character and that sort of thing. So I think we can be guiding lights a bit more.
Yeah.
Cool.
Rensler. Since Christmas content release, we are able to bring life to a machine and convert them into living, breathing things, and we're capable of bringing back a reindeer from the dead. What's the true limit of what we can do? Can we bring back a dead god?
So the immediate thing to broach this is to go, this is a seasonal event, and it's not really canon. Like, when it was seasonal events, we stretch the lore and we stretch what's capable of being.
Have we overdone that, do you think? Because I know there's a lot... Like, when can a player say, actually, no, that's not canon? Evil Dave brought this up again.
Yeah.
Well, Evil Dave
which is that canon? Garrow Quest 2?
Evil Dave was canon, but it stretches and plays with the definition of things.
True. Yeah.
So Evil Dave has a joke about overshooting teleportation.
Right,
I aimed for somewhere and I overshot.
That's true,
Which is fundamentally not how teleportation works.
Yeah.
And the Evil Dave, the Garrow Quest is obviously a more extreme example, but Evil Dave, a lot of the humour is rooted in messing around with the rules of the world and the rules of the game.
Yeah.
And not in a completely fourth wall breaking way, but certainly leaning against it quite heavily.
Yeah.
And I think you just sort of have to interpret it in that context and say, we're unlikely to bring it up as a major plot point that, say, as a Nadra, when he's fighting for his life, can teleport arbitrarily by
laser pointering and then moving,
and then overshooting with his teleport. Like, that's unlikely to come up as a strategic consideration in a very serious quest because it was being played for a joke.
Yeah.
And I realise that's a little bit displeasing from a canon perspective, because you want to know, well, what's true and what's not true, what can be done in the RuneScape world and what can't. But it is quite inherent to the RuneScape sense of humour, that sort of leaning on things like penguins are canon. But if they are canon, they probably ought to have a bigger impact on things than they do. But they don't. We're not going to have penguins suddenly sail in and solve the God Wars, because that wouldn't suit the tone of the penguins and it wouldn't suit the tone of the God Wars. And so there's an element of sort of things have to be kept separated. And
is it troublesome that we've done so many of these non-canon things in like the space of a year or a year and a half?
Probably more troublesome that we haven't done so many serious things.
Yeah.
It's not that we've done too much joke stuff, it's that we've done probably not enough serious stuff.
Do you think it's something we can solve through messaging? So in the same way that with the Garrow Quest there's a disclaimer on the accept screen to indicate that it's canonical until it isn't, or whatever the phrasing was, be able to indicate the canonicity of certain content when you start it?
Possibly, but I worried we'd have to apply that message to sort of 75% of quests.
At some point,
something like Evil Dave Quest is an aberration in terms of something. When we do a proper quest, they're normally canon, like fully canon. We wouldn't necessarily put massively fourth wall breaking jokes in. Penguins, of course, being the exception, but I'm sure we can make up a lore reason for why penguins can be the exception if we really had to. I'm not saying we should. I think everyone knows penguins are ridiculous. But I think seasonal quests are just inherently not really canon. There's so much stuff that theoretically happens in them that's just kind of silly
Yeah.
that if it's a canon thing, is more problematic than advantageous, I would say.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
So holiday events are by default questionably canon.
I would say that, yeah.
Questionably is a good way of putting it.
Yeah, that's good.
We might riff off them in future. It's likely that it's very likely that future holiday events will reference or assume the existence of previous holiday events, but again in a slightly strange way.
Yeah. We might make
Queen of Snow and Guardian of Gothics.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
We might.
Nebraska Prime's a holiday event, isn't it?
Nebraska
was
Primes
originally.
was an April Fool's event that we turned into.
Yeah. So that,
Oh, it was
that
an
would be
Easter
an,
event, wasn't
it?
that would be an example of a.
Okay.
Of a was it an April Fool's joke?
I thought we polled Cabbage Face Punch against an Easter event, and we determined.
Oh, so well, Brassica Prime existed, of course, before.
Yes,
Cabbage
yeah,
Face
that is true.
So was
oh, I see.
His,
Sorry, originally.
his original oranges. No, that's not right. His original
Assassin's Creed
origins was I wasn't even drinking last night. His original origins were an April Fool's thing.
Yes.
But
then it got turned into an
then
actual thing.
it turned into a thing because one, we rather liked it, and
I think this
two,
was
it
before
kind
our
of
time
worked.
as well, wasn't it?
It was a bit. Well, I think it
original
was a
was,
bit
yeah.
our fault of making him a god. I think it was a bit.
It was
your
my
fault.
fault, I believe,
wasn't
actually.
Oh, was it?
Because I had a
was a
reference
king.
to Brassica Prime
Yeah.
in Death of Chivalry, which in a way made it canonical.
Yeah,
Yes,
and then I got to voice him, so of course I tried to put him in everything.
And then he was in MPD,
Yeah, then it was
Yeah.
in that.
and then he was in Gower Quest. No, he wasn't in Gower Quest.
So Brassica Prime, it's weird. It's that kind of weird thing. Brassica Prime became canonical from a non-canonical thing,
Ascended canon.
which is, I suppose, where the kind of was it questioningly canon comes from. So
that's-
Do we regret that?
I think it's a good example of saying, well, he was technically in Death of Chivalry,
Yeah.
but if he hadn't been in Death of Chivalry, it wouldn't have made any difference.
I think
it's
this
not like Brassica Prime shows up and saves the day. It's just an offhand reference to
Yeah.
him.
I appreciate that it's also confusing, but like I have a similar approach to the novels. Like we have appropriated Coromare, not hugely recently, but it's that similar thing that she didn't exist until she did
yeah,
in the game.
I feel like a good rule of thumb is if it's being played for laughs, I wouldn't stress too much about whether it's canon, because if it's being played for laughs, we're unlikely to use it seriously, which I think is what is mostly being got at when the question, is it canon, means are we going to revisit it in future? Is it something we take into account? You know, is Evil Dave's discovered an incredible new form of teleportation? Is that going to be taken into account in the future? Are the Wizard's Tower going to be investigating this? Are the ZMI going to be trying to figure out how he does it to get an advantage? And the answer is no, probably not, because it's not. It's being played for laughs.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't realise just how many questions were pretty much on this topic. So I'm now actually using the scroll bar, which is
well,
great.
it's
We
the
can
big
skip
thing
some
in
of
the lore community at the moment.
Yeah.
I've noticed it's a huge point of discussion because they're all discussing, like they've brought up the whole kind of thing of going, well, Zaros is sort of moaning and whining because he can't create life, but we've just done that from really easy with a holiday event kind of thing. It's like, now, one, we haven't, like the player hasn't done what Zaros is trying to do. Like life hasn't been created from nothing. Life has been basically stitched together from various other sources and that kind of thing. So it is different in terms of how we do things. So like Zaros has made stitched together life because he's made he's made
spliced life is the word
necks and nihils, but he hasn't made something from nothing, which is the important point. Homunculus in the Tower of Life, although that's kind of a dubious kind of an one.
This was kind of pre-narrative design time, wasn't it?
Definitely. That was in the time when the lore was just like whatever people fancied at the time.
Yeah.
Whereas now we're kind of stitch it all together and make it work. But yeah, so the Tower of Life again, but that isn't something from nothing. That is effectively a bunch of people have taken a bit of themselves and put it into something else. So it's not creating life from nothing, it's just moving life around, which is a bit of a weird thing.
Okay.
Although that one's
I
still
think
dubious.
we've established a bit more clearly, I think, that the Elder Gods, I'm not sure I'm saying too much here, that the Elder Gods aren't, the God tier list implies that the Elder Gods just wander around going, I create life, I make a man, I make an animal, and that they didn't actually do that at all. What they generate is anima, and anima generates life.
They have created life, don't forget, because of course they created the, what's it called?
And
Thank you.
Yeah.
The Tsar and the Tokar. They created them with a
Yes.
click of the fingers, click of the tentacles, whatever they've got.
The granity tentacles.
The granite tentacles. So
They're almost more automatons than...
But they are
They're
sentient.
not, they are sentient,
Yeah.
but that seems like a side effect rather than an intentional choice. I mean, maybe
I
I'm
think
reading
it was
too much into
intentional.
it.
I think we established it was an.
Did we?
Well, we're probably getting quite deep into Elder God
It's
lore
true.
here,
Oh,
but
we may be going too far.
my interpretation of it is that Thor was trying to create life, but carefully controlled life,
Yeah,
where
that's it.
the living tools, you don't want to make them too, although they're self-aware, so they're useful tools, they have carefully constrained programming to prevent them from
Do you
being disloyal.
Do you see a lot of their personality being a product of iteration, like the reforging?
Yeah, definitely. definitely. And I kind of imagine that a lot of the qualities that they have are inherited from the Elder God herself. So like how that the Tsar fall back to laying eggs, that's something that came through from the Elder God's physiology, because she kind of, as the one living creature she was familiar with, she used herself as a template for creating a new life.
It does remind me of those times when we were trying to fit all of the story together that wasn't necessarily anticipated that way, and just those moments of clarity when it was like the Tsar fit this role that we have for them so perfectly. Same with Majorat in certain instances, and Seren. The feeling when lore clicks together is beautiful. Okay, Captain Lime. Oh, good old Captain Lime. Why haven't gods we've never seen, like the Obsidian Tribunal, chosen to come to Gielinor? Isn't Gielinor's whole shtick that it's catnip or godnip?
They've made a big assumption there, which is the Obsidian Tribunal isn't necessarily a deity, which I think I have mentioned on streams before of kind of going, assumptions really? But that is a big assumption
his
there.
Beard, it can only mean bad things.
But certainly, Gielinor is the big awesome shtick of the thing, but the universe is vast. There's so many worlds there, and there's so many worlds that players don't know about that we don't know about.
How many do you anticipate? Is it as many as we've shown in Lore Council? Or, the Lore streams and things, or?
I don't think we've really. So, because Stu did the big presentation at RuneFest.
Yeah, so we kind of established the galleries of worlds, as it were, and then we know of a couple of them within them, that there could be considerably more, and most likely are.
And we know the empty spaces that we haven't plotted in yet, because of course we've aligned all our stuff to the runes and that kind of thing, but it takes into account, ancient runes, all manner of ancient spells and that kind of thing.
But do you have an idea of magnitude? Do we have an idea of how many there are? Do we think it's like our
I wouldn't want to commit to anything now. But
I'm interested.
It changes the feel in the. If we say it's like, if we say the RuneScape universe is like our galaxy and it's got 1 million stars and about 1 million planets and maybe 1% of them are inhabited or something, something that sounds like real.
Time frame is vast. There's so much more error in
that. To me, that undermines the RuneScape feel, because then it's very much about galaxies and space travel and sci-fi, and that's not what we're about at all. It's not, the world that you described in your RuneFest talk was sort of almost elemental pockets, which had a few planets within them.
Yeah, which have kind of
which is radically different to our.
Nature.
So that conceivably there could be as few as 30 planets. There must be at least about 30.
Yeah, also perceived
there probably aren't millions.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere between 30 and millions.
Yeah.
But also, I think they have a tendency to take apart the worlds that they create, particularly ones they were really unhappy with, just disassemble them, reverse engineer them to create new ones. That's where a lot of the Sacred Clay came from. That's in the Abyss. That sort of thing.
So, from an Elder God's perspective, as seconds, they might have made something and just tossed it away and then made something else. So then, that's true. Marine Doge, or is that you say it, Doge?
I say Doge.
Yeah,
I think you're supposed to say Doge, but
Doge.
People who aren't familiar. with
much
16th
water,
century
very bulk.
Say Doge.
World events. When can we get another one?
That's a question for you.
So
it's not really a lore question, to be honest.
Yeah, it isn't really. It's kind of a production design thing.
There are some lore-based questions in it, which is that kind of. It brings back the question of choice, which I know we've discussed at length regularly recently, because
World Event 1 and World Event 2, which are different forms of choice, and neither of them really worked or resonated.
So I think, because we raised, and I know I'm talking over you with what you were about to say, but we've had discussions before about world event sort of things that we could do. I remember when we were looking at expansions in the past, of doing it was it Sea Monsters, the expansion we were looking at, which is suddenly we would just flood the world with things.
I don't think the players.
An event.
Did we ever announce that?
No,
it was never announced.
No,
expansion.
This wasn't. By the way, this isn't the expansion that was going to be expansion 2 or expansion 3. This was actually a discarded one. It was one that I was using to explain what an expansion could be if it wasn't geographically located to a city like Menaphos. So Sea Monsters was the idea of, wouldn't it be cool if for a period of time the sea going to the sea wasn't safe?
Yeah.
Or suddenly there was more varied and diversity to it. Sea monsters were turning up, people were getting ripped from the shores, that sort of thing. And then you're starting to question whether to go to Catherby anymore. That's quite cool. I like that as a form of world event.
Sort of change the surface, but not change
and it doesn't have to be geographically
story.
located specifically to a place. You don't have to hub it every time, basically.
Yeah, certainly. I think maybe the world could be destroyed by another god or something. So maybe not something
we could have made Dimension of the Damned. World event. That would be an interesting example of something that would be a world event.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a strong argument that we shouldn't have, and that it was better in the context on a separate server. But conceivably, we could even do something like that, where there's a separate server that you log into with your main account.
Yeah.
And the world is different. And that I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, but in theory, we could do something much more disruptive if, like the sea monsters are just destroying the world, if it's on a separate server that you log into. That way, if you don't want to be annoyed by this world event that's going on, you can log into normal RuneScape instead and ignore it.
Yeah, that is
we could.
smart,
I mean, theoretically, we could do something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like lore-wise, I think we're a bit frustrated by both World Event 1 and World Event 2.
Yeah.
It does crazy things for continuity that have hurt some people.
It's made quest continuity sort of almost meaningless.
Yeah.
It's made it very difficult to plan. Like, if we were to put in the idea of a world event with a massive choice in it, planning is a nightmare. Because we assumed, load of players assumed that we rigged World Event 1 to be Saradomin wins. We all assumed Zamorak was going to win hands down.
Yeah.
So we got we made the Zamorak cutscene first, and then we had to backtrack really quickly because we just assumed. And then when we saw the numbers, we were like, "Oh heck," and had to change it. But we
underestimated the number of goody two shoes in the community. Yeah.
I think we expected the same thing with World Event 2 as well. We thought the Bandos would win, so I was prepping Rite of Passage. Sans
I remember thinking it's unlikely that Bandos is going to win this.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just you thinking that you will win out every time.
Yeah.
But
I had to plan Rite of Passage with contingencies, which was a pain.
I think
my concern with World Event 2 is that we had to sort of 180 on lore twice. Because the having committed that we were doing World Event 2 and what its premise was, we had to sort of hurriedly make Bandos a sympathetic character because he was absolutely unsympathetic. He was presented as he's basically the most villainous character in RuneScape.
Yeah.
Far more so. He's far less sympathetic than Zamorak.
I think we went for sympathy through cool factor, but there was an element of sympathy in there too.
He changed from being Bandos the selfish warmonger to Bandos the honourable god of combat, which was a huge derail from how he'd been presented in the Goblin Quest, and then we derailed him back again with Mighty Fall. in order to have consistency, in order to have consistency with the Goblin Quests. So we in Mighty Fall we portrayed Bandos as consistent with the Goblin Quest and not consistent with the Bandos of World Event 2.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of disappointed in retrospect that it ended up making Bandos' character.
I think it's fair to say we learned a lot from it. But yet, and this is where my production lead designery thing comes in, World Event 2 was very successful. I think a lot of people remember it, the opt-in PvP, the construction nodes, that sort of thing. Like from a horrible, icky, businessy point of view, it did really well because loads of people came in to play it. But also, I just enjoyed participating in it. It felt like something genuinely was happening to the world.
There were some very strong gameplay bits of World Event 2. I shy away from PvP like no one's business. But when World Event 2 was on, I was there. I put my PvP flag on. It was hilarious because I'm rubbish at combat. And everyone would pick on me because that'd be an easy kill, and then just watch as everyone else just slaughtered the people who picked on me, which is terribly satisfying. But I think there is something in world events that's gameplay-wise can work if we get the right world event. Because World Event 1, whilst it did okay, didn't hit that. I think the players didn't get the things they wanted necessarily. They wanted bigger, more impressive, more. They wanted to be stomping cities alongside Zamorak kind of thing. I think lore-wise, they've both been.
I like as a team, you've also been hitting back at me and saying, don't just do a world event because something fits it, actually fit this into the 5-year plan and actually work towards it as well.
Have it be coherently part of the story rather than interrupting the story,
Rexost, who sets up all the jack-o'-lanterns and other holiday decorations around trees in the middle of nowhere around Gillinor? This is from a theme perspective, not from a mod rouge way.
The art team?
Who
in world does it?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
I mean,
I assume just general citizens, really.
Yeah, we could. I'd be inclined to put that under sort of hesitantly non-canon again, in the sense of like.
Oh, come on, play for a bit.
Okay, the people of RuneScape. No, it's.
They're pumpkins, they're vegetables, it's Brassica Prime.
Yes.
So that solves the pumpkin situation.
No,
who's putting up these 15-year lanterns?
Marimba.
Yeah. She doesn't want Brassica Prime to do all of the stuff. She wants to get in the way and just go, no. People need to know where the nearest pub is, so they need light. So she puts the lanterns up so that they can find their way to the pub. That's what it's all about.
So who's wrapping all the presents?
Santa.
Yeah, Santa.
Come on, get with the obvious holiday event canon.
the non-canonical holiday event canon.
The non-canonical presents are wrapped by non-canonical Santa.
Yep. Solved.
So Mod Rowley has put down a quickfire round. I don't know. Is this for the rest of it? I don't think Mod Rowley and quick has ever been done in the same sentence either. Sorry, that's not criticising how he works. That's his, getting about the office mainly. Kebab thief.
Oh, kebab thief.
He's always hobbling about
thief.
like an old man.
Is kebab thief? I don't have a kebab thief on like hassling me for questions. Things like that. Is this...
Kebab. I recognise the name kebab thief from the Lore Friends chat.
Right.
And kebab thief. I assume it's a question about kebabs because they threatened that.
There's no meat or anything in this.
Oh.
I'm not going to
Surprise.
claim I'm
There we go.
disappointed. I'm mildly surprised.
So with Zaros returned, will the vampires join him or Zamorak?
Ooh.
Right. So Modroni's putting in little brackets here. No, neither.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, I would say none of the above.
I would say no need. That's a Rolly question.
Yeah. There's always been that implication that maybe they have pulled that kind of ownership in the past anyway.
I think they're less likely to. I think he's right. I think they're less likely to follow a god now because the gods are, like, particularly now that they've seen gods win and lose, and it doesn't really seem to make a huge difference. But I mean, they're quite powerful in and of themselves. They don't need a god to prop them up, and they're doing quite well on their own. Thank you very much. So I imagine they'd go.
We worked out because we were looking at the God Wars,
and
we worked out that the vampires must have betrayed Zaros alongside Zamorak, and then betrayed Zamorak because the two pieces of canon story are that the vampires are in full control of Mauritania, while Zamorak is being pushed back and defeated so badly that he decides to destroy Foreign 3. So for those things to both be true, the vampires must be not supporting Zamorak, so they must have betrayed him. So they already, before the end of the God Wars, had established their own territory and given up on Zamorak.
Well, and that's true of Vampirium as well. The many families, there's been infighting and so much politics there. It seems part of them. Kebab Thief again is the Dragonkin homeworld Frenescape.
No.
Yeah, agree with that.
That's a good example. It keeps coming up, this dragon equipment coming from Frenescape thing.
Oh, yes.
But dragon equipment is not from Frenescape.
Was it a
That's
fairy?
a sales
fairy
pitch.
or a gnome?
The fairy is like, it's straight from Frenescape, because that's what you say if you're trying to sell things.
It's not.
I've got these amazing tea bags.
Check it out.
They're from Frenescape. They're really Frenescape tea bags. They're just some dragon equipment we found down the back of the sofa.
Yeah.
Will the Karamjan gods be revealed soon?
I don't know, will there? That's your thing, isn't it?
It is a bit of my thing because I'm the only one who cares.
I don't think we have a plan. It depends if someone picks up the Karamjan storylines, I think. I don't think there's anyone immediately planning to, so I wouldn't say it's anytime soon.
Yeah. Again, I mean, we're getting into kind of tap stuff, but there are a couple of people who've approached via tap. I think, to you?
Oh, I've not heard of Karamjan.
No, not on that one.
Not a Mod Ryan? Okay, cool.
I've not heard of Karamjan.
No, not for Karamjan.
I've heard other things.
Unless I misunderstood
I've got
his
a beard.
question.
Excellent.
That's not beard.
Okay,
You
right.
need a proper beard to be able to go. You need this kind of.
A malfunctioning beard. An unruly stubble. Ptolemy Dean, is the spirit realm separate from the spirit plane? One of the things we inherited when we got into narrative design. I mean, personally, I'd like to remedy that. No, I suppose you're the best person to answer this, actually.
So the spirit realm is the place where familiar spirits, where you do your summoning, you summon the spirits of familiars. That's where they come from, and the spirit realm is specifically the afterlife, ghostly place over the wilderness.
Yeah, I mean, was there ever misrepresented as being the shadow plane? Is that because again, like functionally, they're quite similar?
Yeah.
Have you addressed that, or you can look to address it? Or?
I mean, the incorporeal planes where spirits dwell aren't necessarily always going to be the shadow places. And then you also have the afterlife on top of that, which is a lot of it is defined by the beliefs of the people who die, and it's rather complicated. But even so, the spirit plane is independent of those, because those are more like living spirits of nature rather than where dead people go.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the cleanest. It's something that I'd love to...
I think the spirit plane is probably just another name for the underworld. It's not technically the underworld. But,
some part of the underworld,
it's
or
some part
extension
there's a bit of the underworld
or...
that seeps in before you get sucked into the actual underworld.
Okay. And same guy, Tomb Worlds were first mentioned in Sliskay's Endgame. Tomb Worlds. What are they? Prison planets? This is where my lack of knowledge comes in.
I am assuming this is my fault with being flowery with writing rather than anything else.
So are you just talking about worlds that are dead?
I'm talking about worlds that are dead as a Tomb World,
Right.
yeah.
So
sorry,
it's not 2 mods.
it's me being flowery with writing, me going mad doing. I know, so unlikely.
Can we have 2 mods? Which are full of undead.
Just a full of it. Sure, why not? Well, we could do. We've got the death rune. Do we have a
let's do
death
that.
plane? There you
Yeah.
go. We'll have a tomb world.
Well,
It's
I mean,
ruled by the.
NB may not actually have a tool.
Yes.
Yeah. So I need
Sounds
to
cool,
interrupt
right?
because
Let's do
it's the most pertinent question that we've come across so far. Miss Lunaris, why does Quandis have boobs? Why doesn't Marimbo have boobs?
Asking the important questions.
I mean, I hate to reveal that we are in fact juvenile, but
Do you want the pragmatic answer is it depends on what the concept artist drew. That's the simple production.
yeah.
And the in-universe answer is that the gods can generally look like what they want to look like. So if they want to have
Yes.
those particular assets, then they can do. And if not, they can be
is
a little
that
more modest.
true of those desert demigods? Can they look as they want to look? Because I mean, they sit awkwardly on the hierarchy. And
I mean, they inherit qualities from the original mortal stature, and then other ones develop in godhood, not necessarily within their control. But
Yeah.
I think their appearance, they have a degree of mutability. I
yeah,
believe.
certainly with size. I mean, we've talked about that quite a
Yeah.
bit. Okay. No, I was just curious about that one, but yeah. I mean, Marimbo originated from what one would assume was an ape originally.
Yeah. Well, Marimbo was genderless before. Like they'd been referenced. I mean, they'd been referenced once or twice as male, but that's just general assumption
Yeah, it
of
was
a male
inconsistent,
character.
wasn't
And then we hard and fast decided female. I think actually we decided hard and fast after the graphic was done. Sorry, concept art, not graphic.
Steve's added the brackets here, so he's actually answered the question. I'm going to try to do it in a Steve fashion.
Wow.
They're neither reptile or mammal, they're goddesses. Any rules that may have governed their mortal existence, assuming they ever had a mortal existence, don't believe everything you read, are no longer relevant. They are how they choose to look.
That's not bad. He's like he's in the room with us.
I know.
if you're watching Mod Rolling, I am sorry.
I'm not apologetic. It's my birthday, take it.
Oh, it's your birthday? Of course it is.
Yeah,
Happy
it's my birthday.
I should remember this. I wrote you the typical nihilistic birthday message on Facebook.
I didn't sign your card because I was really busy and I hid it at the opposite
Yeah.
end of the office.
This is the thing, like Mod Mark decided that, because he's my line manager, he decided to put the birthday card 2 floors below everybody who works with me. And we all went,
And he gave us about 4 hours notice to sign it.
oh, did he? I'll go and hunt for it.
Whilst
after
we were
this.
leaving to go to the Christmas
Bring it
party.
to me and I'll sign it for you.
Yeah, same.
Not sure I want it now. But this is exactly how I want to spend my birthday with you guys, if that's any help. Scribblerfors. Will Zautak be the next villain of Gillinor? So Mod Raven.
No, I don't think the plan is for...
Not the next one.
Not the next one, no.
And who says there might be a villain?
I mean, it's it's us. There's a villain somewhere, but...
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to say more.
Yeah, don't assume their intentions. I mean, Zartek might be entirely benevolent.
Sorry. Sorry, I've written up a bunch of Zautak lore recently, so I'm laughing at
They
that
gave
comment.
Zautak tentacles for cuddling, right?
Yeah. What better way to get a cuddle than a big,
suction
squishy
cups to
tent-
really kind of... I'm just assuming things again. Ptolemy Dean. Oh, sorry, they're all from the same person.
Oh.
Where does the rune span fit into cosmology?
Oh boy. Yeah, I actually haven't really worked out the details on that one as yet. It should sit within the balanced plane because it's where the power of the different runic elements are conduited into the rune crafting altars. So I guess it's fragments of those areas connected to the rune crafting altars.
Yeah.
I need to actually look into the lore of rune
Yeah,
span
I mean, the guild has
figure
a
what's
fair
been
amount.
established.
Yeah, I know that Mod Nancy and Mod
Mod Pi did
did a lot.
rune
Yeah.
span. So I need to talk to him about that and establish it.
Fold it in a little bit, yeah. Quandis. I like Quandis. Why was Icthalorian and Ambuscut's backstory retconned from them being Tumikin's children into just ascended pets?
They weren't retconned. They are Tumikin's children.
Yeah.
It's more to do with the nature of how gods reproduce. Mod Rolly and I discussed it at length. We wanted to try and create something and have it work, and we were discussing like sort of god reproduction because we decided, I think, that gods don't necessarily reproduce the same way that people would normally expect.
Are we talking about like Zeus levels of like its birth from the leg of a horse?
It's something like that. So we decided that to make them like true children of the gods,
Yeah.
rather than it being a genetic thing. The two of them are, so a god is effectively kind of a divine essence, is a sort of energy matrix.
So it's a taking of the essence rather than...
So, but it took a bit of Tumikin's essence, a bit of Elidnus' essence, combined them.
So it wasn't necessarily bonking, it's something else entirely.
No, but it is literally the child of those two. It is the pairing of those two that created a unique, two unique
interesting
beings.
comparisons would say Zamorak and Khazad.
Yeah.
Zamorak is Khazad's father in two different ways. He provided both whatever the equivalent for Majra is of genetic material and also the divine energy necessary. And he didn't necessarily have to be the same person doing those two things. And then Zaros creating Nex, and I guess all the other Nile, but Nex in particular. Now, like, Zaros isn't flowery enough to really refer to Nex as his daughter, but sort of technically she would be.
Yeah.
But he just created her out of nothing or out of bits.
Any word on Moya then? I mean, how would Moya fold into this?
Moya's another bit of a weird case. I mean, she's more of a Frankenstein's monster experiment than anything more than that. She's literally she's an experiment of illusions. Like, he wanted to see what would happen. He wanted to see whether a human Majrat hybrid could work and be powerful and potentially be a way around some of the Majrat problems. And he decided that she was a failure, despite being pretty badass.
Yeah. Mr. Linares has then got 5 questions in a row. We'll see how many we do. But it's one of these questions that we see quite a lot is, could X become a god? Like, if I threw a piece of toast at a god and it killed the god, would it become a god? Could a spirit become a god?
No reason it couldn't with the right circumstances. It's a tricky one.
So what does the godhood latch onto? What must be there?
What kind of spirit?
That's a good point.
Spirit plane or spirit realm? We've come full circle.
An nature spirit, an undead ghost spirit? What kind of spirit? Because if it was a ghost...
A ghost, I could imagine doing
copy
it.
of the spirit.
I think a ghost could be tricky.
If you infused a ghost with a massive load of divine energy, what would happen?
You could have a ghost god.
Yeah, it would become a ghost god.
I think you could do
that.
that.
And if you infused a nature spirit with a whole load of divine energy,
I think it would be a different way to
but that might not happen if you accidentally just threw toast.
Yeah, I mean, the situation that would set it up would need to be quite dramatic and different, but I don't know...
So what is the bare minimum that you need to be a god then? What we're saying is the
divine energy.
stem.
It's divine energy, yeah.
Load of divine energy.
No, so that's the god bit coming in, but what must I have to absorb that energy
You need something
to retain
for the energy to be stored in, so I mean, I think you need a soul. I'd say.
So are we saying that the spirit is pure soul?
Gods don't have souls, so I wouldn't say yes.
Well, maybe the god energy feeds on that
get
soul.
Converted. You need a soul or some form of divine energy.
If you had a non-sentient god, would it still be a god? So if you infused a load of divine energy into a piece of toast, it would be divine toast. But it wouldn't really be a god because it wouldn't have any sentience with which to do anything with its power.
But then if I ate that toast...
Then you might become a god, right?
So is that not a effect?
That would mean that the dividing line is are you sentient enough to be able to make use of the power that you have?
Yeah.
But by counter, we do have an example of a deity that is literally a piece of food that became a god. So I think it needs to be...
It was still life.
Oh, did Brassica become sentient? Yes.
Yeah, he became...
Yes, okay. So
he would have become
okay, well, so the toast would become sentient, so therefore there's no...
Though if we take GalQuest's canon, then cabbages have sentience.
Yes.
That's true.
But we don't. But if we take GalQuest's canon, then Brassica Prime doesn't exist.
Oh my lord! Right, okay. now I see why players have a problem. Okay. Have any of the gods' factions tried asking the Tsar or Dorgashun or any others to join them? Let's stick to the Tsar and Dorgashun because any others is just going to take us all day. But
the Dorgashun were asked to join.
Yeah,
that was not the whole point of
it.
it.
They were asked to join that.
I mean, it was press ganged more than asked. But
but then so in the aftermath of the Mighty Fall. I think we haven't. I mean, I think we established this recently, didn't we? We were talking about the God Wars and the relationship between Saradomin and Zamorak, and we were saying, as far as at least those two are concerned, Saradomin won the second God Wars. Like, Saradomin is currently in control of Gielinor.
Yeah.
Like, almost everywhere is either Saradomin worshipper or at least neutral to him. Zamorak returned. They had a fight. Zamorak lost. Zamorak tried something else. That didn't really accomplish anything either. And the culmination of the aftermath of Sisko's endgame is that most of the world is still Saradomin worshippers.
So that implies that the second God Wars is finished. Is that what you consider to have happened?
So from Saradomin's point of view, there was a fight. There was the Stone of Jas.
Yeah.
From his point of view, he's beaten everybody.
The
regardless
gods
of
are
the
still
outcome of the
here.
end game.
They're still
Yeah,
in conflict.
but they don't
Would
seem
you-
to have accomplished anything yet.
mean-
They haven't taken any territory off him. They haven't taken any worshippers off
We
him.
didn't really ever have a second God Wars. Like, I know Sliske wanted one. He was trying to big it
Yeah.
up and get it
Yeah.
moving, get it going, and all the gods kind of went.
So more of a Cold War?
It was more of a Cold War, yeah. And I
Okay,
suppose the God Cold War doesn't sound quite as cool. Or Cold War? No.
Gold War.
Cold War. Gold War. Yeah, okay, the Gold War. Where am I? I was too busy trying to work out the language. But that would still be continuing now. It's not really a solved one. I think all of them are still at odds, but I've lost.
We still have
what's
so
going
many
on.
pieces in play and this isn't as if we're not going to tell stories with them.
Yeah.
Even though, as we've said, there are other directions.
I
we can
think
go.
part of the answer would be like, Saradomin doesn't really need more worshippers at this point because the entire world is his worshippers,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
a few exceptions. Zamorak probably would be trying to recruit. And we know that Zaros isn't. Don't know about Armadale.
Armadillo is still recruiting, but not in a kind of militaristic, aggressive kind of way. It's more of a
Passive.
Yeah. I'm going to pick up two things that I've just looked at from the chat.
Oh.
So just because I've actually looked up for once, I've realised I've looked at my screen too much. One is bring back Guthix, you scum.
No, he's
Yeah,
dead. He's
let's
not
do
coming
it.
back. No, he's dead.
Do you
He
ever
shall
regret
stay
that?
dead.
Do you regret the fact that Guthix isn't
If
here?
I get my divination to 200 million, have I collected enough bits of Guthix
No,
that I
it's
can
dead.
make
It's
my own
gone.
pet Guthix?
It's not coming back.
And the second thing I saw was, can you talk slower? We don't understand you.
I'm guilty of that, I apologize.
Yeah, apologies for that. We're all quite enthusiastic about this
We yammer.
topic.
And
we
remind
go
you,
at length.
we have come back from the Christmas party, so yeah.
We're probably talking over each other as well. So that's, we will try our best. We are Brits as well, which apparently makes us intermittently completely comprehensible or utterly incomprehensible.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Mr. Linares, I'm going to skip to your last one. If an Ilyanka was powerful enough, could they have tamed Tusker or Lornab?
Oh.
I don't know if this is your choice. Would they have tamed Tusker or Lornab?
I love the Lornab question.
I don't think so. I mean, it depends. When an Ilyanka, if it achieved ascendancy and became a god, I think maybe there's something there. But I don't believe an Ilyanka would have the power to affect
A god rider.
deity. That just sounds
tickles
faintly
me.
dodgy. I think that's X-rated RuneScape. I've lost where I was going with that one.
I'm sure there's plenty of shipping out there, don't worry.
I'm sure, but yeah, I don't think a normal Ilyanka, I don't think could get powerful enough to do a deity.
But aren't the Ilyanka largely, they've got some kind of symbiosis with more lizard-oriented creatures, things that they're on their planet for whatever reason. There's some
on
kind
their
of
planet.
connection
It's
between them.
anything that has like. So cold-blooded creatures are better. Theoretically, they could learn. So it works kind of by.
So could they ride you or I, for example?
So it isn't mind control.
Right.
So this is an important thing.
Yes.
I've written a document on
So
this recently.
Avatar-style hair tassels.
It's more to do with it's more sort of empathy.
Yeah.
So they allow
Right.
it a better sense of understanding. So it's like when you domesticate and tame animals, it's because they understand where you're coming from, understand where they're coming from, and it becomes a sort of thing that they.
More Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
I feel the need to
You're
compare
just
it to film.
throwing ideas.
Unhelpful analogy.
I was thinking more like
Make everything
taming a
more
horse, but
confusing.
with a touch.
Yes, so whisperers.
With the dragons on RuneScape in particular, so dragons are sentient, and what they do is the Ilyanka's empathic ability is able to diminish the dragon's rage.
Right.
So the dragon can function. So the kind of trade-off is that they can build that bond, build that sort of friendship, and the dragon gets to be not wanting to rip everything apart all the time and can actually have some clarity. So that's how they get that kind of.
I mean, it sounds like conceivably that could work on Tusker. It's just that.
I don't think they'd be happy.
You say
I
just
think
the
it's
sheer
there's that
power
sheer
wouldn't be high
power,
enough.
yeah,
Tusker's more angry.
Which is
than
why I
that.
think if an Ilyanka ascended, which would be cool, I'm just saying, then I think they could maybe do. Lornab probably more than Tusker, because Lornab is more cold-blooded, as it wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
'cause
Lornab's a
Tusker is
Hydra. A non-divine Hydra, I'd say yes, definitely.
Yeah, a non-divine Hydra, yeah,
Maybe
yeah, yeah.
maybe they'd have to touch all its heads at the same time. So you'd have to be constant. Right?
Well, no. Because don't forget.
His head's angry. Oh, no,
don't forget
it's angry. It's too angry.
Hannibus can do like the KBD with just
Oh,
one
yeah,
touch.
no,
So I
damn.
think they can
You
do
spoiled my fun.
all heads.
Whacker Hydra.
Yeah, but
Anger game.
that wasn't a law question, and I had to
Yeah,
answer
you have to
properly.
give a good answer. Yeah. Spoiling it.
Marine Doge is back. Is the World Guardian able to use magic without runes by now? Interested about that by now.
Technically, I mean, with the OC, yes.
I guess abilities aren't canon.
Yes. I mean, that's a good question. I assume that by now is with reference to the fact that gods and Majrat and basically everything in the game can do magic without runes now. And I think it's fair to say we have been fairly sloppy on who can and can't do magic without runes. That's not been that's not been something we've paid as careful attention to.
Yeah, I mean,
for sure.
what has been nice, what has been retained is the Fourth Age, for example, is a story about humans and their ability to control or use runes, and that's been very clear. So at least that's been somewhat retained. So would you say the World Guardian can use magic now?
I would say that's still a limitation. That you're still fundamentally human. You don't have any inherent spellcasting ability.
I think there is. Yes, if anything, there isn't. Other than where we've sort of hinted at additional powers that aren't unlocked yet. Being the World Guardian doesn't inherently give you any.
I like how it feels like a passive perk. You know, if it was a mechanic, it's always somebody's tried to do something to you, and that has been.
I mean, we say the World Guardian is powerful and important, and what we mean by that is, well, that's you and all your skills and all your quests that you've completed and all your powers and.
There is a energy that they can tap into. There is a power inherent in them.
But they can't do that freely, right?
No, it's a once in a blue moon. This is why it turned up in Endgame for the moment it did, because it was out of that sort of important moment, crucial moment, fighting for your life, fighting for reality kind of thing, and so you're able to grasp that power briefly and use it against a pummeled Sliske.
I mean, it would make an interesting quest reward.
Yeah, it's true.
But then it would completely ruin the rune economy.
So well, I mean, this is
probably. I'm going to teleport and high out without using runes.
Access to a power like that was one of the things that we were pitching for Endgame as a reward.
Yeah.
But it was such a bouncing headache, and we already had enough work at the time that we went, let's shelve that.
If we could sort the balancing out, then conceivably a spell you can cast without runes could be a reward.
Yeah.
But that would have such an effect on combat that we couldn't, as quest writers, just go, we're doing that.
Yeah, it'd be a big thing.
Well, John has done a great job of throwing up some lore questions from the chat, so we'll actually respond to you. Here we go. So, can we have a follow-up quest for Sliske's Endgame? That's the world.
That would be the next part of the big storyline, surely. Unless it's referring again to replayability, which again is with QA.
The follow-up quest will be whatever the next big major lore quest is.
So it throws up. I mean, it's worth having that conversation of like, Sliske's Endgame has huge requirements to play. Only a proportion of the player base can do that. But we want to tell stories that are after it. How do you handle that? I mean, what are the complexities of that?
It's the same problem we had with World Wakes, that if the next quest requires all the previous quests to play, and if we have this expectation that a Grandmaster quest is going to have high requirements and so on, then it puts us into an ever-spiralling escalation of higher and higher and higher quest requirements.
Yeah, some people would sit there, certainly in this chat, and say, fine, do that. But I mean,
it just doesn't work for us. So part of when we have to make the argument, we should make more quests, and part of what we're asked is, well, are people playing your quests? And we have to say, I mean, not really, because it requires 120 Slayer, so it quite limited the number of people that can play it.
I know then the counter argument is, but it's aspirational. People are going to work towards it. A lot of people work towards the Elf quest,
and that's definitely valid for some quests.
Yeah,
but probably shouldn't be all quests.
But I think it's worth noting. And obviously, you don't all have this data, but the stacking of that many requirements is turning off people from doing quests.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So while we could say, but people work towards it, the daunting nature of that, and the fact that I have to do 20. It's like when I see The Sopranos is on Series 7.
Got to watch the whole thing.
I can't be bothered to watch the whole thing to get there. That is the feeling that is hitting a lot of people, and it hurts because we'd love to tell stacking stories.
Yeah. It's not that we don't want to tell stacking stories. It's to do with whether or not they have hard requirements.
Yeah.
We've been talking about a number of possible things we could do. There was the idea of something that we unfortunately haven't been able to do with Pieces of Hate, which was a previously on, and allow you to start. Recommend that you do this quest first, it'll make more sense. But if you haven't, then we'll do a previously on.
Yeah.
So for something like Endgame, our previously on would be, this is a assumed canon of what you have completed.
Yeah.
And choice is another discussion to have a bit further down the line, but that way would allow more people to have access to the story, which gets past the sort of daunting nature of it and allows us to tell more stories.
Yeah, it's just a little note to a lot of the kind of lore community. Start talking about this sort of thing, because we're going to have to broach it at some point.
Yes.
It's going to have to be done. Well, you're a unique medium in that sense, in that you cannot interact with this medium until you've read the other things that came before it. So we're going to have to deal with that.
It's worth also pointing out that whilst it's aspirational content, sure, that's definitely true. The majority of the story, like, people know about, like, on day one, day two, because even it's almost impossible to avoid spoilers, like, because of how our games work, because of how we update, because of how the community works with that. Like, aspirational is a lovely concept, but for the story, for people to understand the story, they probably already know it. So making them have to do 100 quests before they can get to the new quest just means they start to get turned off from story because they go, well, I'm always behind, I'm always being spoiled. It's like trying to get into Game of Thrones now, which is like most of the big twists are known about.
Also, sadly, even if they've played the quest, they may not necessarily have paid attention to the story anyways. Hold the space bar the whole way through until they got the quest complete.
Forcing you to do the prerequisite quest does not in any way force you to understand the story so far. We're not going to put a test in and, like, you're not allowed to do this quest until you demonstrate knowledge of the intricacies of the political situation.
When some quest came out 3 years ago as well. You know, like, how I'm going to remember that quest that came out 3 years ago that I played on day of launch because I was really excited for it. Okay, sorry, I interrupted you.
Actually, in that sense, the sort of recap or previously on is actually really valuable, even if you have completed the quest.
Even if you're an enthusiast.
If you haven't spent the last 3 years discussing it on the lore forums, then you probably forgot what happened in that quest.
We can still do, like, the big main quest with the other form of aspirational, which is we can still lock the rewards behind completing the full quest. So the rewards and things like the big amount of XP, the special skilling items, those sort of useful functional things, would still not be available to you if you've not done it. But the story you could jump into potentially. This isn't a thing we've decided. Like, this is the thing we're discussing.
Not a final plan
so, like I said, lore players, please discuss it and discuss it from a kind of a sensible point of view as well. Like, consider, like, if we don't have these hard requirements and, like, the next quest has to follow Slitker's endgame, like, in terms of all the stats and prerequisites, then we can theoretically do more. We can do more story. Like, otherwise, because the other problem we have is if we're stuck behind the big prequels and kind of things we've got so far and the high level requirements, is we can't actually do a small quest in that time. We can only really, because the requirements are so huge, do something massive, which brings us back to the exact same problem of we can only do a few quests because they've got such high resources.
Do you want to take the top question, Tim? What effect Jack? What effect is the M&S mining smithing rework going to have on some of the lore, like Banor?
The M&S rework.
M&S, I like that. Over here, that's Billy Marks and Spencer's.
I mean, I'll try to answer the sort of the spirit of the question rather than the letter of the question. As far as I can see, the letter of the question is sort of, well, the point of using something like Banor is to try to get mining and smithing to be consistent with the existing lore, rather than to invent its own new lore. That's kind of what we're trying to accomplish there, and that's very much an open. I mean, I'm considering sort of polling that even, but
I mean that does create a weird kind of paradox in that you're doing it to be consistent with the lore, but there's a fear from the lore community that is going to be inconsistent because Ritual of the Madrak.
It means that we have to, for example, there's another source of Banor or. The Banor from Ritual of the Madrak is a special kind of Banor. We have to introduce something, because I saw some people, they were worried that the quest reward would be taken away, and that them having the same narrative premise doesn't necessarily mean they have to have anything to do with each other mechanically. So it may well be that the cave from Ritual of the Madrak is still just there, still works in exactly the same way it does, with exactly the same requirements, and then there's a separate cave with this other kind of Banor in it, which you can mine and make into swords, and the two can't be interchanged.
Yeah, I can't remember if...
That may be the correct way of doing it.
I must admit, Ritual of the Madrak made it clear that this was an exclusive. Banor only comes from here. It's Kethian, that kind of thing.
It's a difficult question, but there are little... When we come across... I mean, this isn't just a skilling issue. We come across this constantly in lore of, like, some obscure claim is made at some point in some old piece of content, like, this is the only one, or and then that's treated as... as
written kind of thing.
Yeah, that can't possibly be wrong. That must be factually true. And then, so in the case of mining and smithing, for example, I think it's fair to say, I think not controversially, that the update is aimed at skillers more than it's aimed at lore players. Which isn't to say that we don't want to have it be consistent with lore, but you can't do that because it wouldn't be consistent with one line of dialogue from Ritual of the Madrak is not a good reason to not implement Banor if that would make the update work much better for the whole rest of the community. And that's kind of harsh, but if it grossly violated some major piece of law, then yes, we definitely wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But
the fact you're present in that team and you've got the consideration of your working in the universe is important and good.
Yeah, but when I'm doing mining and smithing, I've primarily got my skilling hat on and not my law hat on.
Yeah.
The law hat has to come second, and it's sort of if we can get, because I mean it's a difficult enough problem anyway.
Second?
Huh?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Sorry.
It's underneath. You can't see it.
Right. Okay. Tiny hat.
It's hard enough to get everything working with the mining and smithing rulebook, and we can't treat relatively obscure law issues as hard requirements for what can and can't work. Yeah. Which isn't to say we're definitely going to do Baynor. Like I think we should consider polling that. We'd say let's poll Baynor against Invictum. We'll come up with a more elaborate backstory for Invictum to make it sound a bit more interesting, and then we'll poll those two against each other. I think we're happy to poll that. Like I'm not committing to anything.
Yeah, I mean, your plan is to do some polar work with mining and smithing, right?
Yeah, we didn't really talk about it on the mining and smithing stream because we ran way over time. But yeah, we do. The only my instinct is let's poll absolutely everything. My preference would be to poll almost everything. The problem is if we poll everything, we get fatigued really quickly. Like once you've got to your fourth or fifth question, you go, you know what? I don't care about mining and smithing anymore.
I mean, I think 30 questions in one hit, is now more palatable.
But even 30 questions in one go can be fatiguing. Because you're restricting the number of people who are interested in answering. I'd rather know if everyone in the community thinks we should have Baynor, rather than a very tiny invested subset. Yeah. The people who can be bothered to go through that survey. We're intrinsically limiting the number of people who answer. The more questions we ask.
All right, so we have 5 minutes left of this wonderful thing. So I've made the decision that we're not going to marathon it. Just mainly because it's my birthday.
Lame.
That's fair.
Yeah. That's
so I'm going to take the 2 questions that we have up here from the stream, and then I'm going to try to take one from the section that Steve calls interesting questions we probably don't want to answer. So let's take the bull by the horns and go for it. God War Raid.
I would love to do something like that. I mean, I'm a big fan of the idea of narrative-driven raves, but I mean, I hate time travel.
We're in God War at the moment.
But I think there are ways we can do it.
Is this current God War or is this old God War?
I don't know. To be fair.
Yeah, we'd love to.
I mean,
but is this more narrative-oriented raid? Is that what they're asking?
I'd see it like that, like the idea of showing the God Wars in a kind of raid format. So in this format, you'd go back in time and find yourself in the wilderness during the God Wars.
What if it was a raid saga?
Yeah, actually, something like that would be really cool.
Because sagas are traditionally like adventures at the moment.
The problem with the raid saga is obviously you're given your loadout. We've had that tradition with Arav.
But you could build mechanics into that. You could
make variations strategies.
Build their own combat bar, or
Or
you could let them choose from a roster of potential characters that were in the God Wars. Or you could unlock more as you go through.
You could be your own ancestor, and they happen to have the exact same skills and gear that you.
I like that you're creating your own game here. This could be its own mobile game.
I'm just wondering about how we can do it without time travel, because I know you're not comfortable with time travel.
Though you've done it. Anyway.
I hated it. It wasn't my fault.
Okay. Do we know for sure that Braska wasn't a human before ascending?
Yeah, we know he's a cabbage.
Okay, all right. Right, I'm going to randomly go for the section we shouldn't answer.
You know the answer's just going to be we probably shouldn't answer that.
Okay, a Cardareth. Why were Jazz and Sliske working together? Specifically, what was Jazz hoping to get from the arrangement? Oh, that's not too bad. I feel like I've let this down, actually.
Give us a hard one.
Yeah, all right.
That answer was Jazz wanted to understand sentient mortal life, and Sliske offered to be.
I've got it.
There's a discussion at the moment on forums about that one, which is interesting, just on the subject of the Jazz Sliske one, which is people making a weird assumption that Jazz is somehow mind controlling Sliske, which isn't the case.
No.
You have to think of Jazz as the elder gods as being these alien entities. And so their understanding of what Sliske is actually doing and after is very different to what we think it is.
Okay.
I always thought of it as Jazz is going like, can anyone help me understand mortal life? And Sliske goes, I've got you, fam. I'll do that for you. I am totally trustworthy. Everything I say is God's honest truth.
But all I need are these.
Give me superpowers and I'll sort it out for you.
All right, here we go. This is the question I should have picked. Letitia. So, using cakes.
I love this already.
Can we have a rough relative chronology of the order in which gods arrived to Gielinor in the Second Age?
Using cakes?
Positioning, like you were using, like creating a solar system. Come on, I want to see order of gods coming into...
Order of gods arriving on Gielinor. Okay, so Guthix.
Yeah.
Saren. Oh, you don't have to be got cakes. I'm not asking you to cook.
I see,
Guthix is a Battenberg.
So Guthix...
Yep.
Can I draw little horns?
No,
So, Elder
we
Gods,
don't have
Elder
time.
Gods.
We don't have time.
Mod John's not doing anything.
Those little horns.
I say that's
Go.
Guthix.
Saren.
Yeah.
Why have you not
Sarens
done a
can be
wiggly
cake.
worm for
Saren.
Guthix? Right, Guthix, Saren.
Because I
Saren,
can't
yeah.
draw the Gothic symbol.
Are you sure, Saren?
Yeah. Guthix brings Saren to Gilmore.
Saren's there in the first
Yes,
stage,
you're
isn't
right,
she?
actually.
Yeah.
Sorry. There's obviously Elder Gods here.
And then we worked out Saradomin
God.
must have
Saradomin
been-
must be there
Hot
first.
cost.
must
Hot
have been
chocolate.
one of the first
Hang on.
gods to arrive after.
Let me do a
Guthix, don't you think?
Saradomin.
It's a white moustache, right?
That's Saradomin, that's his beard.
Okay.
You have to eat
It's
all of
upside
these
down.
afterwards because it's your birthday.
And then, okay, hang on. And then all the way at this end, Zaros.
Yeah.
Yep.
We definitely know Zaros.
And then everyone else somewhere there in the middle.
No, come on, let's have some thought behind this.
Well, some of them we don't know, in the sense that, like,
We established
there's
Armadillo is one of
absolutely
the.
no information on which to base it.
I think
So there was-
Bandos, then Armadillo. Oh, what is it? Oh, was it no?
No, Bandos is much older than Armadillo, but Bandos,
Didn't come to
necessarily-
Gilnor, yeah.
Bandos only came to Gilnor when the God Wars were already in full flood.
When he heard about
In fact,
them,
wasn't
yeah.
he not there in the Second Age, I think?
That would be strange because
think
so many of it, obviously so many of
Yeah,
us.
I
may be
think,
misremembering.
no, I think he's only third age.
Yeah, I think
Early- very
Bandos
early
wasn't
third
there
age.
in the Second Age, and he only came to Gilnor when the Third Age had kicked
Yeah.
off. Because
Right.
he thought it'd be a good laugh.
So we've got
So it would
Bandos
be-
roughly
So Bandos
on the
is,
table.
Bandos is after Zaros.
So it's Armadillo, I think, next.
Armadillo would be there.
So there has been a theory that Brassica was pre-Guthix. I'm just throwing that out.
Oh, when are we counting
Why don't we say
Brassica?
yes?
So Brassica.
The rules of improvisation, right?
No, I don't think Brassica was pre-Guthix, but I think Brassica comes in about here.
Well, that is pre-Guthix. Oh no,
No,
that's-
Guthix
that's-
is
Pre-Saren.
there.
Yeah, pre-Saren, sure.
Well, I
Oh,
mean,
no, I'm deliberately
don't
putting it a little bit out of the way.
cream on the bottom of the
didn't
cake.
Brassica very recently ascend, but there were cabbages for a very, very long time before that.
I mean, does a cabbage ever really die? Maybe it's the same. Maybe it's a really ancient cabbage.
Well, Saren
Depends
knew-
on whether you consider
so
cabbages have
Saren-
souls or an afterlife.
Saren knew Brassica before she exploded. Because she tried to imply that Brassica had an actual purpose.
Oh, but the
which I
explosion,
think-
Yeah, explosion's like far-
happens
Yeah, the
here.
explosion happens there.
This is the
But she
outbreak
was
of
beyond
the
she
God.
was
Bandos.
friends with
Oh no,
him.
no, sorry. Yes, you're right.
Beyond
yeah.
Bandos.
Yeah,
She was
beyond
friends with him, so I reckon more that.
I think we should spend more time establishing exactly when Brassica Prime.
And
That
so
seems like the most important.
the
thing.
cake plate is a rough amalgamation
And
of
then-
gods that are sitting in the middle of that.
I think it's probably reasonable
Is that
to assume
Armadillo?
that's Armadillo. So
Okay.
I would put Tumican there.
Technically, I guess Zamorak. Zamorak, you've got an argument for putting a couple of places in that timeline.
Zamorak is definitely here
Okay.
because after it must depending on whether you count mortal or god.
Yeah.
It's still after Zaros
Yeah.
and before Bandos.
Hopefully, this is emphatically
So there you go,
clear.
there's Zamorak.
This is perfect. I want this just effectively copy and pasted and put on RuneWiki as a timeline.
The cake timeline of the god scale.
If Legend Arts can just apply faces to each of these.
What's brilliant is they'll have done such a good job paying attention to us that they'll document it incredibly accurately.
Point out all inaccuracies.
And they'll say, like, I've already forgotten which of these two cakes is which.
Quick, eat
But-
one.
but
No, Zamorak
Zamorak,
and Bandos.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
it's
there we go.
obvious.
I really want to see Legend Arts drawing the gods as cakes now. I really want to see that. If anyone wants to draw the gods as cakes, I will be so happy.
Yeah. Fabulous. Wow. Thank you so much for. I don't know what this was. It was something. But it's been an absolute joy. I'd like to take this moment actually to. It's not really an announcement, but like these guys are doing such a good job, and my kind of half presence as a narrative designer has been somewhat damaging the game. So I'm bequeathing the full narrative design and story to the Lore Council. So I'll be stepping back a little bit more from story, doing fewer things like this, unfortunately, little tear. But it means
Well,
that you
can
guys...
still host for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. But that means that you guys can actually take the strategy of our story and do a much better job than the half-assed version of me that was doing it before. So big expectations there, obviously. Thank you so much for watching. Have you had a good time?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I really enjoyed my hot chocolate. Having said I didn't want the hot chocolate, that was really
It
good.
was a good hot chocolate.
Thank you, John.
Lots of marshmallows and cream.
Yeah, mine's probably a little tepid now. But
Also, there were law questions, and that was fun too.
yes, that's always good.
But mostly
And
the hot chocolate.
thank you, Mod Rowley, for supplying the
And
ordering.
and all the players who asked the questions.
Yeah.
Indeed, especially Marine Doge and who was the other one that keep just so many questions.
We barely scratched the
Capacity.
surface. Did we even break page one?
Yeah, I know. So thank you so much, and do have a wonderful Christmas. We're going to be at work for another week, but have a wonderful one. Happy holidays.
Tuesday.
Stream next Tuesday, which is
Let's call it RuneScape Christmas quiz for the minute.
The RuneScape
that.
Christmas quiz. So yes, there'll be jollity there.
I think I'm in.
But in the meantime, have a lovely weekend and hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.
Cheers.
Hey!